And so what I thought would be so fascinating would be you have such a long view of where functional medicine has been over the years, where integrative medicine has been, and you are in a very unique perspective in owning a supplement company, and not only owning a supplement company, owning a supplement company that is operated by a family, by a small business. And so I thought it would be fascinating for patients, for practitioners to get a peek behind the scene of what it is to be in the supplement industry. And so I want to start off with just kind of high level observation on Moss Nutrition. The reason I decided to use Moss Nutrition and offer that to my patients a decade ago was because when I was looking for a company, your company had so much educational materials on it, that it was almost like I got a master's degree in nutrition, just simply going through your materials. You have articles from 1995 on the microbiome listed on your website. You are now close to 400 deep dives in clinical literature for product newsletters. The entry-level clinical nutrition series literally changed how I take patients on. And so the first thing is, how do you come up with that much energy to keep diving into the literature? And obviously this wouldn't happen unless this was a passion for you. Tell me why educating practitioners is something you've done for decades now.
I'd say the short answer is, at heart, I'm a clinician. That's how I started out. I was in dentistry for 10 years.
Yeah.
Was doing clinical nutrition with my patients the last 5 years. Ultimately, I really had such a passion about clinical nutrition and the supplement industry that I really wanted to make a full-time pursuit. And I graduated from Michigan in '74 dental school. By the time '85 came, I really felt that I'd done as much as I could in dentistry in terms of pursuing a more metabolic approach to healthcare. And I got an opportunity to go to work with a supplement company, starting out as a salesperson. But what I realized, and we didn't start our company until 1992, we didn't develop our own product line until 2009, but the common thread was that the supplements are only as good as the knowledge of how to use them. Just basically selling supplements and just take everything. I remember the thinking was, it was very kind of almost, I don't know how to describe it, elementary. When I got into it in the 70s and 80s, the thinking was that just give them everything, give them a multi, and everybody will get well. And I really drank the Kool-Aid. That sounds reasonable, but it didn't work out that way. And just giving them everything, whether it be all in one pill or a bag full of pills, we weren't, just particularly more complex chronic illness cases, they weren't getting the kind of outcome. And I says, I'm missing something really big. And so I started in about, I would say, the mid-90s. I was at a crossroads. I thought I could go out and get a PhD in nutrition, looked into it, and in those days, it was like a legitimate institution starting out maybe 50 grand. And this is 80s, 90s money now.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
So I decided, do I really need that at this point in my career? I don't need the letters after my name. I have a certain amount of legitimacy. I was a certified nutrition specialist, CNS. I was already at a DDS. And so why not just buy all the books and go to the library and really learn about the intricacies of human physiology so that I could really tailor what I was selling to the specific needs of the patient rather than the typical industry approach, vice versa.
Yeah.
Let's basically take the patients and shoehorn them into whatever we're selling.
Yes,
And so I was buying like $700 worth of quality metabolic medical textbooks that maybe focused on nutrition, but more precisely focused on human physiology and metabolism. I really wanted to understand stress physiology. I wanted to understand toxicology, how it applies to the average sick person. And what I found out is that just giving them everything wasn't going to be the answer.
I'll say that it's now 2025, and we have the idea that if you just give enough nutrients across the spectrum, enough vitamin C, magnesium, vitamin D, zinc, resveratrol, quercetin, on, if you just slam enough healthy nutrients, that people will get better. But obviously, the field has still some growing up to do.
Can you put a pause on it for just a second?
Yes.
Something is going on with my receiver.
Okay.
It's going on automatically. What I found out was that when looking at the needs of the average chronically ill individual, emphasizing at heart, I'm a clinician.
Yes.
And what do we do as clinicians? Yes, sometimes people come in and I feel great. Tell me how to keep feeling great. But that's not what we get. We get people who don't feel good, and they've gone the usual route. And many times they're broke, they're desperate, they're in tears.
Yes.
And we're the last chance bar and grill. And they want to see something different. I found out that if I'm really going to provide a really good service, I just cannot basically shoehorn them in, like I said, into what I sell. I really have to understand what's going on metabolically, stress physiology, toxicology, gut, all of these things. And what I started to do, I had an epiphany, almost by accident, at a medical library, and I started reading critical care literature. And what I discovered, now the critical care nutritionists, there aren't many around. I'm talking about the ones who work in ICUs. They really understand the metabolism of illness.
Yes.
And what's going on with stress hormones, how nutrient metabolism is altered massively by high levels of inflammation, high levels of C-reactive protein. And it came to me, we're seeing the same thing in the average outpatient chronically ill situation, just of a decreased intensity, but it's the same thing. So I just started to extrapolate and started reading all this critical care literature on nutrition and just basically extrapolating it to what's going on in the chronically ill patient. And then with that, when we got a chance to create our own product line in 2009, we designed our products with that in mind. How can we address the metabolic needs of these patients? So that's really a history of where I began and where I end up, how I started and how I ended up here today.
So the main contrast from Moss Nutrition as opposed to many other companies is a lot of companies, unfortunately, are how many bottles can we sell? What is the sexy ingredient? What is the fad of the moment? And how can we capitalize on that? Moss came from a more of a root cause approach. How do we fix the underlying physiology? How do we make really good supplements that address the physiology? Is that correct?
Yeah, we all wear a business hat, all of us in all of our pursuits. We have bills to pay, children to feed, rents to pay, mortgages to pay. We all have that. But I was always supremely confident that if I focused on outcome, creating happy customers.
Yes.
In this case, helping people that don't feel good feel better. It's that simple. I'm not saying cure diseases necessarily. Most people don't come to people like us wanting to cure my disease. They're saying, I don't feel good. I'm tired. Yeah, I have pain and nobody can tell me why. So I always focused on outcome, basic quality of life, what they call morbidity is the technical term, not mortality. They aren't coming to us, I want to keep from dying. I don't want to die so soon. I just don't feel good. I want my life to be better no matter how long I live.
Let's talk about people feeling better. So I want to mention by name Probiotic Select, which is one of the best-selling Moss products. And it's for good reason, because repeatedly, year after year, I have had patients come in on other probiotics. They switch to Probiotic Select and they immediately feel better. And they say, Doc, I've been on this one and this one and this one. And I say, I know, just give one more another shot. Help me understand, what is it about, you have all the levers and all the control to make your own supplements. What is it about Probiotics Select that works better than other probiotics?
It's basically followed a similar theme that we followed with all of our products. First of all, it starts out with looking at the research. Ideally, we find human research,
Yes.
not animals research.
Yes.
Sometimes you don't have a choice.
Yep.
But ideally, I find human research and look at the specific combinations of organisms that help people feel better. Usually, in this case, some type of gut issue. Might be gas, bloating,
Yeah.
constipation, diarrhea,
Yes.
that type of thing. What will help them feel better? And then I looked at the various strains that are used, combined with feedback from our customers. And this is another thing I think that, as I said, I never went along with the idea of we make what we want to make and then basically sell the individual on what we make. Our approach has always been just the opposite. We have to find out what the needs are and find out what works. And so we've always been very open to our clinicians as you tell us what you need rather than we trying to sell you
That's right.
on what we want to make. And so combined with the research information and going to people like you, what do you need? Tell us what works. You're highly successful. You tell us what works. Combined with that information, we came out with a product like Probiotics Select, which is basically not a complicated product.
No, it's not.
It's a classic, what they call 12-strain, a multi-strain product, primarily different strains of bifidobacteria and lactobacillus, which is a classic combination. As you've suggested, you'll find probably hundreds of products.
You go to Whole Foods and just spin labels around.
Right.
We'll find things that are very similar.
Right. But then, again, we wanted to tailor it to the needs of the kind of patients that people like you want to see. And what are the things that we had to assure? Number one, we had to be assured of that we knew exactly what they are supposed to do. And the reality of what probiotic supplements do, this idea of repopulation, total fallacy.
Okay, yeah,
I
this
remember
is
that used to be, I won't name the instructors, they used to say repopulate.
that's
And
right.
you talk to the average gastroenterologist, even those days, they would just laugh and say, no, that's not what they do. They actually have more of a nutraceutical effect in basically optimizing the gut lining health. The analogy, of course, is what grows in your garden depends on the quality of the soil.
Yes.
And that's really what probiotics do. So armed with that information, we wanted to find out what is the best combination of organisms that would create this kind of nutraceutical impact on improving gut health, allowing better balance of gut microflora. But it didn't end there. We also realized that the nature of probiotics from a manufacturing standpoint is there is going to be a good amount of just degradation in the bottle.
Do you think that you are able to get higher quality materials into the pill than other companies?
I'll have to be honest with you. I am not going to insult the intelligence of our audience by saying we make the best products in the market. There are fine companies that make some excellent probiotics. What we do are some other things that some don't do. Probably the biggest single thing two things that we do. Number one is the concept of what is in the industry is overages.
Okay.
The better companies always put more in the capsule that's on the label.
Okay.
Common practice. The question is, how much more?
Oh.
Plan for natural degradation in the bottle, on shipping. Was it in the middle of July, shipping down to Florida? The UPS truck is like 120 degrees. So we made our product to have at least 25%, maybe more than what's on the label.
Okay.
Plan for degradation due to conditions during time In fact, the last time we tested one of our, we call retains. You're supposed to, in the industry, retain about a half a dozen bottles from each batch that you make.
Yes.
We took one of our probiotic select bottles, was open, been sitting on the shelf, room temperature, probably 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
It still exceeded label claim.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons.
Okay. Because it must be very easy for a company to cut margins, putting less amount of the active ingredients in, just saying, trust us.
And a lot of companies do. They will sometimes may put in at label claim, sometimes not even label claim, or they'll have a lower label claim, and that's another issue. The literature on probiotics right now is really leans towards mega dosing. Sometimes 50, 100, 200 billion, 300 billion, 500 billion.
I'm a fan of that approach.
It's just not going to cut it.
Yeah.
The literature is leaning towards mega dosing in terms of billions of what they call colony-forming units, CFUs. And so patients
that sometimes the Align and Culturelle, it's like putting 2 drops of red food coloring in a pool and expecting it to change the color. And you have to get to prescription strength. And so this is why I have my patients build up on probiotics.
So we start out on the label 25 billion. So it's not that hard to get to 100, 200 billion. But again, more importantly, the capsule doesn't connect. At the time of manufacture, it does contain 25 billion, probably 30, 35 billion. Beautiful. But the other thing we do is we also have a capsule, a protective capsule, that is going to get it actually through the acidity of the gut. And that's actually very controversial. The idea that a dead organism does nothing. Actually, this is one of the biggest controversies in the literature right now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of literature that says they're better off dead in terms of this nutraceutical effect. But nevertheless, we wanted to make sure we got as much through as possible. But also we use a special bottle. People think the enemy of probiotics is temperature. No, it's humidity.
Oh.
That's the enemy of probiotics.
Okay.
And so everybody has seen when you open a bottle, there's a little pack. It's called a desiccant pack.
Yes.
What we use is a whole bottle. It's a 3-layer bottle, inner layer of plastic, outer layer of plastic, and in between is a layer of desiccant. So the whole bottle acts as a desiccant. So these are the little things that we do that come together. That's a manner of just basically understanding manufacture. My best efforts at understanding the biochemistry of probiotics, and my best effort at understanding the physiology of the gut.
Man, I'm just so grateful. I just learned a few things that after talking to you for years and years, I didn't know. And so that's really heartening to hear the amount of effort and thought into the details that makes a product maybe work or not work. Let's switch over and let's take the big view of the supplement industry. Of course, you've been here since, you said the 90s?
We started out our company in 92. We were selling other people's products for most of that time. In 2009, we started our own product line and phased out selling other people's products, distribution it's called. And probably now, since about 2017, we focused exclusively on our own products.
And okay, so your own product line now for the last 8 years. And help me understand, how big is Moss Nutrition in terms of a company size?
We're small, and we like being that way. There's myself and my wife, we're family owned.
Yep.
I'm the science clinician guy, but my wife, Joanne, she really runs the business, the mechanics of running the business, making sure that we have inventory, that the boxes are getting packed, that UPS shows up on time. That's all her. The bills are getting paid. So I give the credit.
When I figured out that Joanne ran the show a few years ago, I was like, now I've got the secret.
Yeah, she really does. I'm just, like I said, I have my niche that I deal with. I'm, in the end, head of what we sell and how it's made. And I must give much credit to one of our probably most underappreciated employees, as Diana Allen, our product development manager.
Yeah.
And it's one thing for me to say, I read this study, let's make this. where do you get the ingredients?
Yeah.
There's all kinds of suppliers that make bifidobacteria. Who's the good ones? Who's legitimate ones? And what you do, you have to, number one, they send you what is known as a spec sheet, specification sheet, and a certificate of analysis. And I got to give so much credit to Diana. Looks good to me.
Yeah.
Diana, you want to talk about just attention to detail.
She got it.
No, Jeff. No, look at this. Oh, yeah, that's not so good. So I have to give much credit to Diana. So we have Diana helping me in terms of product development. Of course, we have Joanne. We have our brilliant inventory control manager, Judy, who really makes sure that we're not back ordered. And that's a real juggling act. We got about 130 products. So literally, she's juggling 130 balls, and she's brilliant. And then we have a wonderful pair of people. We have Kim and Hayden, who make sure that the orders are going out, that the orders are, you say, how hard is that? You got to pull the order right. And some of the names look pretty similar.
Yep.
And then we have our wonderful person who answers the phone, Joanne's executive assistant, Liz, who is there to take orders, but not just to take orders, to answer questions about the orders. She also knows when there's a difficult issue to refer it over to me, but we're all focused on attention to customer needs. We have voicemail, but in the end, we feel our purpose is to basically talk to people.
When I still can't tell you that my patients are so surprised that it's very easy to get in touch with you or to talk to Joanne Moss. I'm like, if you have a problem, please pick up the phone and call them. They will fix it. They will help. They're good people. And you say liking being in a small company. I work out of a 500 square foot office. This is my workplace. There's my exam table, right? I think that sometimes being smaller gives you more ability to respond to individual patients, where when you are a big conglomeration, big operations, you don't have that ability anymore. And I think that's one of the best things from a clinician's perspective is having a company you can work with that, because there's going to be orders that get messed up, right? Get sent to the wrong place or got sent to the wrong person or they missed a bottle. And it just feels nice to be able to work with a company that will fix it if that happens. So that's really great.
We are very open about we do the best we can. We're not perfect. We have no problems with apologies. We don't feel that we're any less a person because we made a mistake. Our problem is not that we made a mistake. Our biggest sin is not correcting the mistake and being accountable.
Goes a long way.
And being courteous. And
how many other family-owned supplement companies do you think?
In our niche, and I speak of our niche, the full-service professional companies. In other words, provide a variety of different products. There are a lot of companies that maybe specialize in one or two different products, and many of those are going to be family-owned. They're small businesses, sometimes just early startup very recently.
Yeah.
And there also is the retail market. What I understand about much of the retail market, they're at least the larger ones that I can think of are most of them are no longer family business. They've sold to private equity type corporations.
And these are supplement companies that people would know their names of?
Yeah. I won't name names.
Yeah.
But
big names
the ones
that
I knew of
trust in the functional medicine.
The ones I knew of in the retail sphere back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, the families have all sold out, the ones that I know of.
And sold out to big corporations,
big
correct?
Corporations. And I will say this is a judgment call on my part. I do see the little things that do change. Our focus is finding the best possible ingredients that are well absorbed, tolerated, that are safe. And while, yes, we're cost conscious, we're really not saying that we have to be cost obsessed.
So without naming names or throwing companies under the bus, the pattern that we could say might be there is that you have a company that was maybe attempted to detail when the original family owned it. They sell out to a very large corporation.
Right.
And the very large corporation might tweak the ingredients slightly less high quality, maybe drop the more expensive ingredients, things like that?
Give you an example of what you might see. The family-owned company might be using, let's take magnesium,
Yeah.
which is notoriously, under even ideal circumstances, difficult to absorb.
Okay.
And I tell people, it's real easy to tell if the magnesium wasn't absorbed well, because you'll be right on the can after you take it.
That's right.
Real easy. And so it's difficult to absorb. Some of the best ones, absorbable forms, are the malates, the glycinates, more expensive.
Yep.
And a company we bought out, and you'll see a couple of batches later, they've gone to an oxide, for example, magnesium oxide, very poorly absorbed, very cheap, very poorly absorbed. Little changes like that. It still says magnesium on the label, and they recognize that most people are not going to really pay attention to those subtleties. I've seen that happen in the retail market, but I've also seen it to a lesser extent in our particular niche. Most of the professional companies that I know of that have been our traditional competition, I can safely use the word most, have either been completely or bought out by private equity firms.
Okay.
Or the equity firm has taken a majority interest, over 50%. And some, I think, have maintained their quality, their efficacy, but there are others, and it's no secret among the industry and clinicians, there are certain companies that really went downhill in terms of these little things that have an impact on efficacy and also customer service. I'm not going to name names, but I've heard many complaints from our customers that these companies have been bought out. I can't talk to anybody anymore, and they're always back ordered.
Yeah.
And we understand that we're here to serve the patient. And you don't feel good, you want to feel better right now. We can't do that, but as soon as possible. And so even having to wait a week for a supplement is going to be a significant hardship on somebody who's really suffering. So that's a big deal to us.
A supplement company being bought out by private equity is not something that would be common knowledge, and so very hard for consumers to sort out. One of the big differences between Moss and many companies is that you only sell through practitioners. You don't sell directly on the market, on Amazon. That limits your customer base, and you've obviously done that for a reason. Will you help me understand why you went that direction, where a practitioner has to sign up with your company and then recommend individual products before a patient can go and purchase?
Many of our competition, who were solely professional, now can be found on retail outlets. Yep. And really for us, it was more of a philosophical, ethical decision for us not to do that. Number one is the fact that we really pride ourselves on having top-notch ingredients.
Yes.
It's a double-edged sword.
They're strong.
When used correctly, very bioactive ingredients can do great things.
Yes.
When used incorrectly, the biggest single mistake that we're seeing these days is that not taking into account how they might interact with patient medications.
Yes.
In our particular niche, from a patient standpoint, usually people over 50 years old, and a great percentage of the patient population is on at least one medication. And so we have to take that into account, is that particularly for our herbal products, how it might interact with that medication. And I know that the
primary concern here is probably blood pressure, correct?
Yes, I would have to say, blood pressure is probably the biggest single one. We have seen notable examples. It did happen where we did have a customer who took one of our products, and fortunately, the patient called us, said, I took one capsule, and my blood pressure skyrocketed. And that's the first thing I said. What medications you taking? Particular herb in this product, because we find the best.
Will you mention the particular herb?
Curcumin.
Okay.
Curcumin is well known to basically interact with the enzyme that is involved in virtually the metabolism of virtually every drug.
Yeah.
Probably 80, 90%.
This is the cytochrome P450.
Cytochrome P450 3A4. And it will interact with that. In this case, what it did is our hypothesis, I can't prove it,
Sure.
is it basically increased the metabolism of the drug.
See, yeah, that's what it does.
And his blood pressure skyrocketed. It turned out okay.
So curcumin
I said,
enhances,
stop taking it immediately.
and then so curcumin will enhance the function of the cytochrome P450 enzyme, which will mean it will drop the levels of the antihypertensive medication, blood pressure up.
That's where it gets complicated. Sometimes in certain situations with certain drugs, it enhances.
That's right.
And in some cases, just the opposite. It decreases the metabolism, so you get a higher effective dose. If it increases metabolism, the effective dose goes down. It's not working as well. But in some cases, it could basically decrease the metabolism so that the drug works better. The blood pressure drops too low.
So you made the decision years ago that you wanted to work with practitioners to avoid these kind of problems with supplements, to be able to make sure that the right patients got the right professional grade supplement so that practitioners got better outcomes and so patients were treated how we would all want to be treated.
And the other aspect of it is, quite frankly, I appreciate that patients want to be their own doctor, and I applaud that. Doctor, heal thyself. However, again, when our products come, in terms of our product, you're saying a little knowledge is a dangerous thing.
Yeah.
And since we're so focused on quality control, on high quality, particularly herbals, we just don't want to take the chance that a well-meaning individual is going to take one of our products and run into a situation because they didn't know, and I'm not blaming them,
Sure.
that how it interact with the medication. And so we've never deviated from that philosophical foundation that we really feel that it's best to work through practitioners. We'll talk to patients.
That's
no
right.
question. If they have a question, we welcome calls from patients. And sometimes they've already gone to their practitioner and they need further information. The practitioner didn't give all the information they need. We have no problems talking to them about that, answering whatever questions they need answered.
That's right.
But in terms of the primary recommendation, yes, could we make more money on retail outlets? Absolutely. All I can say is we're doing fine.
Good. I love it. One thing I'm curious for your perspective, Jeff, is if you have the average consumer of supplements looking to buy supplements, are there any shortcuts a patient can use to determine a high quality supplement versus a lower quality supplement?
I would say two things. Number one, transparency. The ingredient list should be freely available.
That's right.
And yes, sometimes you'll see some of these hot products. The marketing is brilliant.
It is.
But you try to find the ingredient list. And I'm not talking about just the glitzy paragraph that talks about the active ingredient. I'm talking about the other ingredients, the fine print at the bottom. That's what you really
About
want.
once a week, I have a consult with a patient. They say, okay, I'm on this. Have you ever heard of this? I say, no, but let's look it up. And then you pull up this beautifully marketed, exciting site, and you're like, ooh, I want to take that. And you're like, where's the freaking ingredient list? And it's hidden on the third tab down in one section that slides over that you make big. And I'm like, I don't.
So total disclosure. And number two would be transparent communication transparency. If you have a question, somebody should be there. I can't say we're going to answer the phone every time. Leave a message. We'll get back to you. Do you want to see the spec sheet? No problem. We'll show it to you. You want to see the certificate of analysis?
Yes.
No problem. Total and complete transparency. Any company that says FDA regulations prevent us from showing you the spec sheet.
No.
That's all.
One of the things that's notable about your product list is that you do not see proprietary blends. That's something that to me has always been
That's not entirely true.
okay.
Yeah. Most of the time, we have complete disclosure in terms of an ingredient list. I can think of one or two products where the company, they won't tell us. We know it's good because we look at their outcome studies and the publications, the clinical feedback.
Okay.
We know it's good, but they won't give us a specific rundown of the ingredients. We have a general idea, but they won't allow us to put it on the label. Now, they're in the great minority, I will say that.
Yes.
But absent that, yes, we have a complete, we don't have any proprietary products by our choice.
This was important to me when you helped me formulate ProBind Select, was that a patient would know exactly how many milligrams of charcoal clay, chlorella they were getting per capsule. There was no, trust me, there's good things in here. It was, this is the blend, this is it. And I feel like that's so important to me as a medical doctor, is we need to know exactly what someone's getting if we're going to trust.
Exactly.
We're going to be juggling a lot of variables, and we don't need the variable of guessing what the hell's in a supplement.
Exactly right. We are the term that's used in the industry now is transparency. And as I mentioned, we emphasize transparency and open communication. You got a question, you got an issue, give us a call.
What would you want a young practitioner, if you had a young doctor in their residency or just beginning a career in integrative medicine, what would you want them to know about the supplement industry that may not be apparent?
Very often the marketing is better than the science. And just be aware, particularly of the symposiums that we all go to. One of the realities, and I would tell these young practitioners, and when I used to teach classes at University of Bridgeport,
That's right.
I would say, never forget. And it's just the realities of these symposiums these days, the hard, difficult financial realities, is they're basically underwritten by labs and vitamin companies.
Yes, they are.
And the speakers are sponsored by labs and vitamin companies. They are all told in no uncertain terms that you're here to give a scientific, clinical presentation that's going to serve the best interest of the audience and their patients, not an infomercial. Some get it, and
I
some
spoke at a
kinda
conference in July, and there was one such lunch talk that was sponsored by a laboratory company, one of the names that people would know, and it was very clearly a biased commercial.
And the lunch talks, they aren't basically what they call
Sponsored
continuing
CME.
education. It's a sponsored talk.
Yeah.
And so they get a little bit more free reign at the lunch talks. And now you're getting into, in my opinion, this is my opinion, the ethics of the company and the speaker.
Yeah.
I give a lot of lunch talks, and this is just me. I'm not telling anybody else what to do. For me, even though it's a lunch talk, yes, I will mention our products. I'm allowed to, but it's almost an afterthought. They know why I'm here. I'm doing this to make a living.
That's right.
So there's no need in basically throwing in their face. I'm there to educate. So my presentations are basically usually taking good studies, quoting the research from the studies, and trying to point out in my commentary, all right, what's this? How does this help you with your practice? How does this help you with your patient? That's me. That's what I do. Again, I'm a clinician at heart, but that's what I would say to the clinicians.
So the young
new
clinicians need to
out
be
there.
aware that much of the functional medicine education is underwritten and sponsored by lab and
Right.
supplement companies.
So-
Be skeptical and make them really prove their claims are.
Yeah, a little healthy skepticism, but I would say one other thing that has never failed. The more they use the words always and never, probably you may want to be a little more skeptical. There is no always and never.
There isn't, and particularly in medicine.
And also how much they use I, refer to themselves, give the impression that I'm the expert. None of us are experts. We're all students. We stand on the shoulders of experts, the real researchers, the real top clinicians. And so the one thing you want to look for is a sense of profound humility in the speakers you listen to. They rarely use the word I, always, or never.
I like that. I like that a lot. Do you think there's a problem in the supplement industry of relying too much on in vitro or animal studies rather than focusing on human research?
Yeah, you bring up a real difficult situation. It depends on the products that you want to make. We made a conscious decision. Number one, we're not going to use in vitro studies ever. And it's just extrapolating from an in vitro study to the clinical environment it's just too big a stretch.
Yes.
Animal studies, on the other hand, it depends on the animal study and depends on what you're researching. Some of the newer things on the market right now, I'll give you an example. One of the hot things now is a form of thiamine called benfotiamine.
Yes.
And B1 has been around forever. Benfotiamine has been around forever. The fact it's getting big from a clinical standpoint, the history of benfotiamine is most of the studies are animal. There are some better human studies out there. They're coming out now. And it really depends on the material. And so I think it depends on the ethics of the manufacturer, what their intent is. Again, is their intent, I go back to where I began, is their intent to basically sell a product? We made this product, we got to get it off the shelf.
Yeah.
And can I say, in all honesty, yes, I do wear a business hat. We make it, we got to get it off the shelf. Yeah. But we do our best to balance it with the idea is that our bigger intent is to serve the needs of the practitioner and the patient. So as best as we can, we're going to go to human studies.
Yes.
And when we have to go to an animal study,
I think
find the best animal studies we can.
I think when it just confounds me when there are human studies on a topic, but you see the company just again and again on the in vitro, that to me is a sign that they may not be taking the science clearly enough. They may not be seeing the full big picture. If they're just saying animal studies or in vitro when there are human trials, I think that's what's frustrating to me. And one of the things I appreciate whenever a product comes out, here's Jeff breaking down the human trials, right? It comes right in your email inbox if you're a practitioner. And so you can take a look at it yourself. Is this worthwhile? Yes or no? And make up your mind.
There is one other factor.
Yes.
Human studies can be manipulated.
Sure.
They do it all the time.
If you're just ranking the quality of evidence, you want to go with human over animal when one exists.
But with human studies, you have to read the fine print, the materials and methods. The reality of practitioners is we can't pick and choose who we treat. They do in the studies. Let's see, we're going to exclude heart disease with cancer, with diabetes.
Yeah.
And they're going to cherry pick the patient population, compare it to a placebo, and very often, under those somewhat artificial circumstances, get positive results. So you have to dissect. Even the human studies can give a false impression of efficacy. That's why the last criteria, and I can't emphasize enough, our last criteria is talking to people like you. And sometimes it's happened. We'll come out with a product, we think it's great, and people like you saying, Jeff, I love you, but it didn't work. and we're not going to argue with you. You're the final word. It didn't work. Have we changed or discontinued products because it didn't work or caused a side effect? We do it with no reservations. So in the end, that's our final criteria. It's not any studies. It's people like you.
It's patient outcome. It's got to be patient outcome based. I love that. Do you feel comfortable sharing what supplements you personally take?
Yeah, I'm a 75-year-old man who's made mistakes in my life.
You went to the University of Michigan instead of Notre Dame.
Yeah, really sorry about that, Joe. We won't get into a discussion of football right now, will we?
One of these days, we're going to change that Michigan newspaper to a Notre Dame one, buddy.
I think maybe someday they'll actually play again. I don't know what happened to politics there, but
yeah,
this is a discussion for another time.
Yes.
And yes, I have personal issues that I deal with. I'm on a protocol right now. I practice what I preach. And to me, I'm like you. What is the hallmark of a great clinician? The great clinician is not the one who basically prescribes the most supplements or the best supplements. It's the clinician who really is an expert in diagnostics, who does a thorough assessment, history, physical examination, if that's possible.
All that boring old
and
school
of course,
stuff.
The best quality laboratory test. And I've had some health issues over the years, and I had a good quality assessment. Right now I'm on a protocol that's very successfully addressing a lot of my personal issues. So I don't have one protocol that I take forever. It's always changing depending on what the laboratory tests, what my symptoms are or lack of symptoms, what physical examination history shows. It's constantly evolving.
Nice.
Right now, I'm on I did some fairly extensive testing. I really had a no questions asked, black and white, I can't eat grains. I just can't eat grains. So not only just wheat free, I'm grass free. I can't eat rice. You name it, I'm off it. I'm okay with that. No problem. I had to go on a good healing and repair program to heal my gut, ran some other tests. I got some toxicology issues. I got a high level of Roundup. Where did that come from? I'm taking Probine and some other things. So I'm in a program that's custom tailored to my individual needs. Beautiful. Based on laboratory and clinical assessment.
Now, it might be a little bit like picking a favorite child, but do you have a favorite supplement in your formula, in your formulary?
Oh, I'd have to say that I've always been one of those rebel type of baby boomer type of people. And I just love talking about the things that nobody else talks about.
Yeah.
Our industry is no different than any other industry. There are trends, things that are in fashion for no real logical reason. And it's very interesting that one of the areas that I think is critically important in healthcare is something, I guess, if you basically talk the average person in the street, you say, duh, water, fluid and electrolytes, minerals, basic stuff. And it's interesting to me that when you talk minerals, magnesium is a big one. Magnesium, 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 magnesium. Got it. And we have magnesium. But for reasons I still don't comprehend, if you look at the literature, what does magnesium need to work, to get into the cell? It needs potassium. And I don't know why. Joe, you have basically heard me to almost nauseating levels talking about potassium.
I have.
And why do I do it? Because nobody else is talking about it.
Yeah.
When's the last time you went to a symposium and they talked about potassium? I have.
I've never heard it.
So I tend to really favor our products that nobody else is talking about. Our first product was the 𝐶𝐬𝐦𝐞𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐦𝐩𝐬.
Okay, yeah. All right. I thought that was your first. Yeah.
It was our very first product because I really felt that the issue of the foundational issue of water and electrolytes was something that was being grossly underappreciated or cherry-picked, to be more precise. We talk zinc and magnesium.
Yeah.
And there's certain other ones, particularly potassium. For whatever reason, they're just, I don't know, not politically correct, I guess.
One of the things you wrote that always stuck with me was that evolutionarily, when we had a hunter-gatherer diet, a more whole food, evolutionary diet, the amount of potassium intake, I think, was 10 grams, maybe somewhere in that ballpark. And whereas the average American may be getting 2 grams, something in that ballpark.
Yeah, I was very influenced by the many writings by a pair of Sebastian and Frazzetto. Linda Frazzetto I actually talked to. She's a urologist from the West Coast. And she took all of this esoteric metabolic acidosis electrolyte literature that was being confined to people in kidney failure in hospital situations.
Sure.
And she brought it out to the general population in chronic illness. And what she pointed out, in terms of general health, the hunter-gatherer was primarily the idea that they went on a certain diet. No, they ate whatever they could get.
Yeah.
And there's only so many animals you can kill with a spear. And so they ate a lot of plant food, and their potassium intake was extraordinarily high, much higher than the RDA. RDA being about 4.5 grams a day. As you said, they were probably on 10, 15 grams a day of potassium. And their physiology evolved to tolerate that level. With that in mind, potassium is really tolerated extraordinarily well.
Sure,
it's easily absorbed, it's easily metabolized, and it's easily eliminated. Whereas, so there was really no need from a physiologic standpoint, because they're eating so much, to develop a physiology that really wanted to retain potassium. There was so much out there. In contrast, the hunter-gatherer, sodium salt was very rare. It was a very rare commodity, hard to come by. And so the hunter-gatherer physiology developed to keep as much sodium as possible because it was so rare. We have to develop mechanisms that will absorb it, keep it well.
Yeah.
Then, of course, with the industrialization came about, things started changing. We started developing processed foods that had the opposite ratio.
Yes.
Too little potassium and lots of sodium. And since our physiology is to maintain sodium to begin with,
yes,
because traditionally it was so rare, now we have people who have very high sodium levels, which has a big impact on blood pressure, among other things. So I was very influenced by Frazzetto's work on that.
In your writings on clinical nutrition, you talk a lot about the low-grade metabolic acidosis that many people with chronic disease are stuck in, this physiological state that's very different from how we evolved. When you give potassium, what do you see symptom-wise improve, and what do you see metabolically improve?
What we're seeing most often, and again, we're into an area now of great controversy, the subject of metabolic acidosis. Traditional metabolic acidosis is defined as a serious blood disorder where the blood is
septic patients in the ICU or acidotic from septic shock, which is very different than someone walking around with low-grade insulin resistance and a standard processed diet.
Traditional definition of acidosis is blood acidosis, and the body controls it very tightly. And you have a change of either 1/10 in the pH can be life or death.
Yes.
That's not what we're talking about.
Okay. Yes, got it.
What we're talking about is tissue, low-grade metabolic acidosis. Easiest way to measure is just a first morning urine pH. It's not a perfect tool, but it's pretty good, written in the literature. And under those circumstances, you become this low-grade chronic metabolic acidosis from a tissue standpoint, generally by eating a diet that's high in acid-based foods. Now, this is right now tremendously controversial based on more of a plant-based Mediterranean diet versus the carnivore diet. And the literature on carnivore in terms of weight loss, one of the best, no question about it. In terms of long-term, complete metabolic health, that's where the controversy comes in. Is
clinically,
are you going to become too acidotic?
I see patients do great on a carnivore diet for a time, but then after a while, I see things fade off and they start to really get stuck.
They become too acidotic. They're not getting enough alkaline minerals, such as potassium, such as magnesium, both of which are found in the plant kingdom, mainly green leafy vegetables.
So you would say
potatoes,
someone on a carnivore diet is not just that they may not be getting enough fiber for their microbiome. It might be a potassium intake issue as well.
Exactly.
Interesting.
That they're just not getting enough of these alkaline minerals, and really it's a matter of balance. And I understand we really have to delineate, and this is something I think sometimes the public misunderstands. There's two types of diets. You don't feel good, and there is the corrective diet to get you back to a certain state of metabolic balance, of feeling good.
Yeah, yeah.
But very often, this corrective diet is highly skewed towards one area or the other.
Okay, yeah.
It's very good to getting you back to the middle. Does that mean that's what you do long term? The maintenance diet usually is much more balanced. An interesting story was, some of you the audience may be familiar with Bob Atkins, the Atkins diet.
Sure.
And I knew Bob Atkins. He was a brilliant guy.
Yeah.
He was in New York City, and I used to go to New York a lot. And he talked about, he was one of the early proponents of the keto carnivore, he didn't call it that, the high protein, low carbohydrate diet. And invariably, you'd hear stories about people who would go on that diet, and initially they feel wonderful. They're losing weight, they feel great, and then they plateau, just like you said. And the old joke was they didn't read to the end of the book, because in the end of the book, even Bob Atkins told them you need to get more plant-based foods in your diet. You don't do this forever.
So the attention span lasted till the end of the book then, and now it's a 35-second YouTube video.
Exactly right.
So when I work with patients, I'll often tell them, I use the low FODMAP diet often in my GI patients as an example. And I'll tell them, all right, we're going to have to be fairly strict on the diet in the beginning until you get the healing, until we shift the gut and the symptoms come down. But then I want to add more foods. I want to bring you back off of the diet. And so there has to be a transition period where as your gut heals, you can eat more and more of those FODMAPs. Or maybe we use a ketogenic or carnivore diet for a period of time. But then we're going to have to be purposely adding back in plant-based diets because humans are omnivorous. We're not made to stay on one diet forever. When the body changes month to month and year by year, and things that worked before may not be what we need now. Well, that's fascinating stuff, Jeff. Let's see. As we come to a close, I'm curious, if you were king of the supplement world for a day or a week, what would you change about the modern supplement industry?
Oh, goodness. Probably maybe every other industry where we're upset about consolidation. We're upset about technology, where I don't want the voicemail tree. I don't want to be directed to this message or that website. I just want to talk to a real human being, because my need does not quite fit in to the specific choices that you're giving me. Push one, push two.
That's right.
And so I would really, if I could, I'd bring back the human element. And yes, we all want to make a living, and I don't criticize people who want to get ahead financially, but I feel that sometimes we in the industry have lost our sense of priority.
And Moss continuing to do things the right way over all these years is why I have been so comfortable recommending your products to all my patients for these years, because I've heard that for years and I've seen it be put into action. So thank you for being around to help so many of my patients, Jeff.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Made a huge difference to have a company that behaves ethically and that have proven their word and their actions align for 10 years now. Thank you so much, my friend.
And I want to thank you. Again, as I said before, I will not insult anybody's intelligence, including yours. I know that you have a choice of many fine product lines. The fact that you have chosen us, I'm extremely honored and extremely grateful, and we're going to do everything we can to earn and maintain the confidence of you and your patients.
Thank you for sharing the ins and outs of the supplement industry. I know my patients will be really interested to learn about the man behind the bottle. And I'm just real grateful for your time and perspective on the supplement industry, Jeff.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Talk to you soon.